Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We're kicking off today's video with a corporate legend, one that proves the fastest way to tame a power-drunk boss is to weaponize his own rulebook. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. New Bosch demanded we follow every outdated policy, so we did, to the letter. A few years ago, I worked in a corporate office where everything ran like a well-oiled machine. People showed up, did their jobs, and went home in peace. It wasn't flashy or glamorous, but it was efficient and drama-free. Then Mr. Micromanage, let's call him Mr. M, arrived. Mr. M was brought in as our new department head, and almost immediately things started to change. He was one of those leaders who read the employee manual like it was the Ten Commandments, except he enforced it with the fervor of a petty tyrant and the empathy of a brick wall. His obsession? Absolute policy adherence. It didn't matter if the policy was outdated, absurd, or counterproductive. If it was in the manual, it was law. On his first Monday morning, he called an all-hands meeting. There was a slideshow, there were handouts, and worst of all, there was a 20-minute monologue about discipline through consistency. He ended it with the words, "If it's in the manual, you follow it. No exceptions." Now, most of us just rolled our eyes and figured he'd loosen up, but no, he started immediately enforcing policies with ridiculous vigor. People got called out for using unapproved fonts in internal memos. Janet from accounting got a warning for leaving her mug in the break room sink against communal area hygiene protocol. A manager even got a write-up for approving a small purchase without the required triple sign-off, something we hadn't done in years. This was when I decided to have a little fun. You see, the company policy manual hadn't been updated in about a decade. Some of the rules were laughably outdated. My personal favorite, a section on handling internal printed documents. According to the policy, every single printed company document, no matter how minor, had to be reviewed and stamped by the document compliance officer before being distributed. The only problem, that position was cut during budget reductions 2 years ago. So the next time I had to print the quarterly department report, I followed the rule to the letter. When coworkers came by to pick up their copies, I told them I couldn't distribute the report until it was reviewed and stamped by the non-existent DCO. I even emailed Mr. M asking where I could find the current DCO. Mr. M came storming over to my desk, red-faced. "Mr. M, why haven't you distributed the report yet?" Me. Per policy, all printed documents need to be reviewed and stamped by the document compliance officer before distribution. Mr. M, that role doesn't exist anymore. Me. Exactly, but since the manual hasn't been updated, and you said no exceptions. He glared at me and muttered, "Just follow the policy." "Gladly," I said with a smile. Word spread like wildfire, the office caught on, and soon we were in full-blown compliance mode. Karen from HR dug up the dress code policy that said we were required to wear business formal attire. By the next morning, everyone looked like they were attending a wedding or a corporate funeral. Suits, heels, even ties on people who hadn't worn one since their prom. Jake from marketing found a gem stating that all expenses, regardless of amount, must be authorized by upper management. So every time he needed to print a flyer or buy pens, he submitted a formal request, CCing Mr. M and demanding a written sign-off for anything over 10 cents. The IT guy even found a dusty old rule about shutting down all equipment for maintenance every Friday at 3 p.m., so that week we did, right in the middle of our busiest day. The office practically powered down like we were in a blackout drill. The productivity tanked, emails piled up, people were wandering around in stiff suits trying to complete tasks that normally took minutes. One guy made a formal request to reorder printer paper using the 3-layer approval method from 2007. Mr. M called another meeting by Friday. This time his tone was different, less my way or the highway and more, let's all use common sense. He admitted the manual was outdated and said it would be revised. He even said, and I quote, "Let's focus on outcomes rather than blind policy enforcement." Victory. The suits came off, the forms disappeared, and the company quietly buried the more absurd rules. And Mr. M was a little more human after that, still annoying but significantly less power drunk. So yeah, we turned the office into a bureaucratic circus for a week, but sometimes you've got to beat someone at their own game to remind them that playing by the rules doesn't always mean winning. It's amazing how quickly a decision can be reversed once the stupidity of it becomes evident. Nicely played. Also, it's funny to see how often the new boss is found on this sub enforce following policies which they don't even know themselves properly. And our second story. He was rude the whole flight. I made sure he didn't rush off the plane. On our way back home from an international trip, my wife, our 3-year-old son, and I boarded a long-haul flight. By the time we got on that final leg, we'd already been traveling for over 15 hours. We were exhausted, but doing our best to hold it together, especially for our little one who surprisingly had been a champ for most of the trip. Unfortunately, the guy sitting directly behind me, not so much. From the moment the flight began, he complained nonstop. Everything was a problem. The seat was too cramped, the food was awful, the cabin was too hot, then too cold, the movie selection was garbage. You name it, he had something to gripe about. It was like he was auditioning for Most Annoying Passenger of the Year. Now, as any parent will tell you, traveling with a toddler's a gamble. And even though our kid had done remarkably well for most of the journey, he eventually reached his limit and had a small meltdown. Nothing major, just some tired crying, the kind that says, "I'm done and I want my bed." Cue Mr. Grumpy Pants behind me, loudly groaning and muttering, "Shut up, man," followed by a very clear, "I hope that baby shuts the F up." My wife and I exchanged looks but chose not to react. Instead, we focused on calming our son, who settled down within minutes. We were exhausted but proud that we held it together. We chalked it up to one more annoying passenger you meet while traveling. Then came landing time. People behind us had tight connections, and a few kindly asked to pass through. Mr. Grumpy wasn't having it. He refused to move even after several polite requests. He barked, "We're in a rush too. Our driver's waiting. Deal with it." It wasn't until the flight attendant stepped in that he begrudgingly moved aside to let people through. Now, here's where karma came in, with a little help from me. We were both seated on the aisle in our respective rows. As soon as the seatbelt sign went off, I stood up and took my time, and I mean my time. I slowly retrieved my backpack, then my wife's, then our son's. I calmly packed away my Nintendo Switch, carefully untangled my headphones, wrapped my charger and tucked it away, pulled out my passport folder and double-checked it, while entirely and very deliberately blocking his path. When I finally turned and stepped into the aisle, I made sure to pause and let people from other rows out ahead of me. I didn't rush, I didn't make a scene, but the guy behind me, he was seething. He kept shifting impatiently, clearly in a hurry, and the more he huffed and puffed, the slower I moved. Eventually, he darted past us in a rage once we cleared the jet bridge. The cherry on top, we got our luggage before he did at baggage claim. Couldn't have scripted better. I've never understood this. Why rush out of the plane? There are a few who don't, but most of us have bags that have to be transported from the plane and put on the conveyor. Sure, you got there before me, but we're still going to be standing side by side waiting for our luggage. And our last story. They called me a Karen, used our driveway like their own, then vandalized my car. 6 months after we closed on our cozy little ranch-style home, my husband and I finally felt like we could exhale. We dealt with flaky contractors, nosy looky-loos during renovations, and one particularly chatty neighbor who thought no soliciting signs were just conversation starters. But after all that, the street had quieted down. The dream of peaceful homeownership was finally within reach. Until the U-Haul showed up. It pulled into the driveway across the street with all the subtlety of a freight train. Out poured a small battalion of adults, surly teens, and a collection of mufferless vehicles that would make a demolition derby blush. They moved in fast and loud, like the bad guys in a movie who instantly redecorate with empty beer cans and lawn chairs. From dawn until 3 a.m., their house throbbed with chaos. Subwoofers pounded so hard our picture window shook like it owed them money. Fireworks exploded off rooftops year-round, not just during holidays. And then there was the endless revving. Someone apparently decided the cul-de-sac was a drag strip. Cars would back in dramatically, idle like they were building tension, then roar away like they were fleeing a heist. And the cars? Oh, the cars. I'm not even exaggerating when I say they had more vehicles than people. Curb space vanished instantly. We didn't even get annoyed until they started using our driveway like it came with their lease. At first it was innocent enough, 3-point turns, a quick back in and out, but that quickly escalated to full-on pit stops, doors flung open, trash rifled through. Sometimes they'd just hang out there, feet on our driveway, blasting music as if our property was the community rec center. Still, we held off saying anything. We figured maybe they'd settle in, maybe they'd learn some boundaries. But yesterday was the final straw. A rusting hatchback crawled up our drive and idled practically against our garage. After 5 solid minutes of watching this woman dig around in her car like she'd lost a contact lens, I walked outside and politely asked her to stop using our driveway. She rolled her eyes so hard I swear I heard cartilage pop and called me Karen before peeling out like she was auditioning for Fast and Furious Suburbia Drift. She clipped our mailbox for flair. That should have been the end of it. But this morning I walked outside to find Karen spray painted across the entire driver's side of my car in shrieking neon green, 2 tires slashed like they owed her rent. At first I was stunned. Then I remembered the security cameras we'd installed the month before, mostly for porch pirates. And there she was, clear as day, not even trying to disguise herself. Same woman from the driveway. She casually tagged my sedan like she was signing a yearbook, then lobbed the spray can into her trunk and strolled home like she hadn't just committed a felony before breakfast. We filed a police report, handed over the footage and license plate, and waited. Turns out we didn't have to wait long. By the afternoon, squad cars had rolled up to their house. The cops towed 2 of their cars for expired tags and arrested the woman for felony vandalism. While searching her vehicle, they found a stash of pills that tacked on another charge. The detective said restitution would be included in her case, replacing the tires, repainting the car. Insurance will take care of the rest, thankfully. Tonight, the street is blissfully quiet. No booming subwoofers, no tailpipes testing our windows. We're swapping out our locks and adding motion lights just in case this peaceful silence doesn't last. I didn't expect our first year of homeownership to include felony charges and police reports. I expected champagne toasts and arguing about curtain colors. Instead, we got driveway diplomacy gone nuclear. But at least now it feels like the final boss of neighborhood hell finally rage quit the game, and we're here to enjoy the victory screen. Some people can't grow up completely. I think the vandal learned a lesson for life, and if not, then I feel sorry for the people she'll live next door to. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.